Have you ever wondered what truly exists when everything you know and believe in dissolves? What remains when the constructs of the mind, daily worries, and incessant desires disappear? This is the moment when emptiness reveals its true nature, a gateway to something much greater than the known. Emptiness, often feared and misunderstood, is frequently seen as an abyss, a space of non-existence that many are afraid to face. But far from being an absence, emptiness is actually the space where infinite possibilities converge, where the true essence of being can finally manifest. But what does emptiness really mean? In essence, emptiness is not an end, but a beginning. It's what allows us to break the chains of the past and enter a state of being where transformation is not only possible, but inevitable. Emptiness gives us a new way of living, where peace, clarity, and connection with the whole become pillars in our journeys. It can be the starting point for true inner transformation, because when we allow ourselves to enter a state of emptiness, we are actually creating a space where the new can flourish. So today, we will embark on an introspective journey that will reveal the hidden power of a state as essential as it is neglected. You'll discover how embracing emptiness can help you release the mental constructs that limit you and pave the way for a new form of existence, one that is fuller, freer. From a spiritual perspective, emptiness is seen as the primordial essence of the universe. This emptiness is not something we lack, but the space needed for fullness to emerge. The concept of emptiness, despite its apparent simplicity, is one of the most complex and profound ideas explored by various spiritual and philosophical traditions throughout history. Different cultures have approached emptiness as the space where the mind can reconnect with its deepest core, free from the distractions and superficial constructs of the ego. From Taoism to Buddhism to Western philosophy, emptiness is often seen as a state of pure potentiality, where the true nature of being can emerge without the distortions of mental and social constructs. In Taoism, for example, emptiness is central to understanding the Tao, the way. The Tao Te Ching, one of the fundamental texts of this tradition, frequently mentions emptiness as the essence of all things. Far from being an absence, it is the source of all creation, the space where the movement of the Tao manifests itself unhindered. They describe emptiness as something to be cultivated and appreciated, for it is where true peace and harmony reside. In Buddhism, on the other hand, emptiness, or shunyata, is seen as the ultimate nature of all things. The Buddhist idea of emptiness does not suggest that things do not exist, but that they do not have an intrinsic or independent existence. Everything is interdependent, and emptiness is the understanding that all things are interconnected and in constant transformation. For them, by realizing emptiness, we begin to let go of the ego and illusions, which leads to awakening and liberation from suffering. In Western philosophy, although the concept of emptiness is not as central as in Eastern traditions, it still appears in various forms. Existentialists, for example, discuss emptiness as part of the human condition, where the lack of intrinsic or predetermined meaning leads to the freedom to create our own meaning in life. Others speak of it as a fundamental experience that leads us to confront the reality of our existence and the nature of being. These various approaches help us understand that emptiness should not be feared or avoided, but explored and understood. It represents the opening to new possibilities, a space where personal transformation can occur. When we allow ourselves to enter this state of emptiness, we begin to realize that the constructs that form our identity and worldview are often limiting and superficial. These mental and social constructs are formed over time, shaped by our experiences, our culture, and the expectations of others. The ego, in its need to protect and perpetuate a stable identity, clings to these constructs, creating resistance to the natural flow of life. The fear of the unknown, attachment to the familiar, and aversion to change are manifestations of this resistance. However, it is precisely by detaching from these constructs that we find true freedom. When we begin to question the beliefs that support our identity and perceptions, we create space for a new way of being, one that is not confined to rigid definitions or pre-established patterns. Emptiness, in this sense, is the process of unlearning, where we undo the layers of conditioning that obscure our vision and limit our potential. The exploration of emptiness also leads us to a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. Without the constructs that separate us, we begin to perceive that we are part of a greater whole, where each element is interconnected and dependent on all others. This perception invites us to live more harmoniously, not only with others but with the universe itself. When the mind reaches a state of emptiness, it frees itself from the incessant noise that usually overwhelms it. In this inner silence, intuition begins to arise as a manifestation of the inner wisdom that becomes accessible when the flow of thoughts is interrupted. This silence is not merely the absence of sound, but a calm state of alertness where the mind, no longer trapped by worries or anxieties, can pick up on subtleties and perceptions that would otherwise go unnoticed. The wisdom that emerges from this state is often described as direct and unmediated, a wisdom that goes beyond words and concepts, revealing the nature of things as they really are. This is why many spiritual traditions value meditation and silence as essential practices for accessing this source of knowledge. Creativity, like wisdom, finds the perfect place to flourish in emptiness. In a state of emptiness with a free mind, new ideas emerge without restrictions. Allowing the creative process to happen without interference from the mind means accepting that not all ideas or insights come from conscious effort. In fact, the more we try to control the creative process, the more we restrict it. It is in emptiness, where there is no rush or pressure, that creativity can flow more authentically and powerfully. It's a state where brain activity organizes itself in a more harmonious way, allowing ideas to connect more fluidly. For example, Einstein often said that his best ideas came when he was in moments of relaxation, such as walking or playing the violin, where his mind was not actively seeking solutions but open and receptive. It is the state of pure potentiality, where all things find the possibility of manifesting. It's where we detach from social and mental constructs, those ideas and identities we form to fit into predefined patterns, and begin to make room for spontaneity and true harmony with the flow of life. Detachment in this context does not mean renouncing the world, but freeing ourselves from the ties that bind us to a limited and distorted vision of reality. And when we free ourselves from these constructs, such as the need for approval, the fear of failure, or the obsession with status, we begin to live more authentically and in alignment with our essence. As a result, life ceases to be a series of efforts and struggles and becomes a natural flow, where actions arise spontaneously, guided by an inner wisdom that transcends the ego and worldly concerns. This state of detachment can be seen as a return to our true nature, because without external expectations and pressures, we rediscover the freedom to be who we truly are. It is at this moment that we align with the natural flow of life, where spontaneity is not just allowed but becomes the most genuine expression of our being. This spontaneous flow is actually life in its purest form, free from layers of conditioning that distance us from our essence. As we empty ourselves of the concepts and desires that burden us, we begin to align with something much greater than ourselves. This process of emptying is not an end in itself, but a preparation for union with the whole. When we free ourselves from the illusions that separate us from the rest of the universe, we begin to realize that we are, in fact, an integral part of an enormous existence. This union with the whole is what many spiritual traditions describe as the ultimate realization, where individuality dissolves and we become one with the universal flow. In this state of union, inner peace becomes a natural consequence of alignment with the flow of life. Here, clarity arises not as a mental effort but as a natural state of being, where confusion and duality disappear. This perception of union with the whole, together with the feeling of lasting peace, brings us to the realization that, in emptiness, we find the fullness of all that is. But to enter a state of peace, it is essential to practice emptiness, a mental space where noise and internal disorder give way to clarity and peace. The human mind, by its nature, tends to accumulate thoughts, beliefs, and emotions over time. Many of these elements are useful and necessary, but others function as mental trash, cluttering our inner space with negative thought patterns, irrational fears, limiting beliefs, and unprocessed emotions. These mental residues not only overwhelm the mind but also prevent the new, whether it's an insight, an idea, or a simple feeling of peace, from entering. Identifying and releasing this mental trash is a fundamental process for achieving emptiness. First, it's necessary to develop awareness of what is occupying space in your mind. This involves a constant practice of self-observation and reflection. You can start by asking yourself, what thoughts and beliefs are repeatedly arising in my mind? Do these patterns serve me or limit me? Once you identify the mental trash, the next step is conscious release. There are various techniques to empty the mind and create space for what truly matters. An effective practice is release meditation, where, in a state of relaxation, you visualize these thoughts and emotions leaving your mind as if you were clearing a physical space. Another technique is journaling, where you write down your thoughts and emotions in detail, allowing them to be externalized and processed outside the mind. Both practices help to release mental trash, creating a clearer and more receptive inner space. This release is important because, as long as the mind is overwhelmed, there will be no space for true wisdom to emerge. It's a practice that requires discipline and consistency, but brings significant rewards such as a clearer, more focused mind that is connected to the present moment. Once the mind has been emptied of the debris that burdened it, mindfulness becomes a powerful tool to maintain and expand this space. Mindfulness, in its essence, is the practice of being fully present in the now, observing thoughts, sensations, and emotions as they arise without attachment or judgment. Being fully present means abandoning the tendency to live in the past or worry about the future, focusing all your attention on the present moment. When we practice mindfulness, each experience becomes more vivid and meaningful as we are fully immersed in what is happening now, rather than being distracted by mental noise. The practice of mindfulness helps sustain mental emptiness, preventing the mental trash from accumulating again. Each moment of mindfulness is an opportunity to perceive what is truly happening inside and outside of you without being dragged by automatic thought patterns. This constant practice strengthens the ability to recognize when the mind is beginning to fill up again with unnecessary thoughts, allowing a conscious adjustment to restore emptiness and clarity. Living in harmony with the natural flow of life is a practice that requires detachment from mental constructs that often create resistance to the natural movement of things. These constructs distance us from the simplicity and fluidity that characterize a life lived in tune with the whole. The concept of non-action, or wu-wei, originated in Taoism, is essential for understanding how we can align with the flow of life. Wu Wei does not mean inactivity, but acting in accordance with the natural way, without forcing or resisting what occurs. When we practice Wu Wei, we allow our actions to flow spontaneously and harmoniously, rather than being guided by the ego or attempts to manipulate outcomes. This concept is fundamental in the practice of emptiness, for by emptying ourselves of expectations and desires for control, we become receptive to the natural flow of events. To live in harmony with this flow, it is necessary to cultivate the ability to observe and respond, rather than react impulsively. This means developing an awareness that perceives the nuances of situations and acts accordingly without unnecessary interference. A practical example would be how we deal with challenges and setbacks. Instead of fighting against them, we can seek to understand them, accepting what cannot be changed and flowing with what can be transformed. This approach not only reduces stress and anxiety, but also connects us to an inner source of strength that operates according to the wisdom of the universe. In personal relationships, for example, Wu Wei can be seen when we let go of the need to control others or shape them to our image. Instead, we accept people as they are and allow relationships to develop naturally. This does not mean being passive in the face of conflicts, but approaching these conflicts with an open mind and a receptive heart, allowing resolutions to arise from a space of mutual understanding rather than imposition. When understood and practiced, emptiness becomes a direct path to achieving true inner freedom. This freedom does not refer to the absence of external restrictions, but the absence of internal limitations. When we empty ourselves of mental constructs, fears, attachments, and identifications with the ego, we discover a peace that transcends external circumstances. This peace is lasting because it does not depend on external conditions, but on an internal state of balance and clarity. The liberation of the ego is a crucial part of this process. The ego, with its incessant demands and identifications, is the main obstacle to experiencing emptiness. It creates the illusion of separation and individuality, leading us to believe that we are merely our stories, our possessions, or our titles. But when we begin to observe the ego with detachment, we realize that it is just a mental construct, a series of thoughts and emotions that, although they seem real, do not define who we truly are. Discovering the true essence behind the ego is a process of unlearning, of removing layers of conditioning that prevent us from seeing our authentic nature. This essence, free from conditioning, is pure consciousness, a state of being that remains unchanged, regardless of external circumstances. And when we access this essence, we experience a freedom that is not affected by the circumstances of life, and a peace that is undisturbed by the ups and downs of the world. Instead of being swept away by the currents of thoughts and emotions, we become like an anchor, firm and stable, able to navigate the turbulence of life with serenity and clarity. Emptiness can also be seen as an effective strategy for dealing with stress and anxiety. When we empty ourselves of the worries and expectations that overwhelm the mind, we create an inner space where stress cannot take root. Anxiety often arises from the feeling of being out of control or unable to deal with life's demands. However, by practicing emptiness, we reconnect with our innate ability to face challenges with calmness and focus. One of the most powerful benefits of this practice is the ability to redefine our relationship with time. Stress often arises from the sense that we do not have enough time to accomplish all our tasks, or that we are racing against the clock. When we empty ourselves of these worries, we begin to perceive time differently. Instead of feeling pressured, we can move with more fluidity, prioritizing what is truly important and letting go of what does not serve our well-being. Over time, as you empty the mind and enter the state of emptiness, This leads to a significant reduction in stress and anxiety levels, resulting in a more balanced and harmonious life. So remember, it's not about avoiding life's challenges, but about approaching them with a clear mind and an open heart, without the weight of expectations and worries that usually burden us. For those who are willing to explore this path, Emptiness offers the promise of profound transformation. It is an invitation to let go of what no longer serves, to make space for the new, and to rediscover the magic of simply being. And in this simplicity lies true strength, true wisdom, and true peace. So, allow yourself to experience emptiness, not as an absence, but as an intense and transformative presence. In doing so, you may discover that by letting go of the old, you make room for the new to flourish, bringing with it a richer, fuller life, deeply connected to what truly matters. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message. And don't forget to leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching and for joining me. Take care and see you soon.